We all ready down here? Okay, it looks like we're all ready to go here. We apologize for being late. We had our closed session and we were held up in there a little bit. So I'd like to welcome you all to our meeting tonight, and I will call it to order, and we'll have a roll call by our City Clerk, Marcy Killian.
The record will reflect that all members are present.
If you'll all rise, we're going to have a Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Councilmember Rigby. We welcome back Chaplain Mr. Christopher Maris of Camp Pendleton Marine Base. And the last time Chaplain Maris was here was in 2012 because he has been deployed at sea in the service of our country. So thank you, Chaplain, for joining us here today.
Thank you, Your Honor, council members. Indeed, I was deployed, and I only want to say it's so good to be back in Vista.
Thank you.
While deployed, I flew over 700 miles by helicopter, hopping from ship to ship to bring services to our military members. Not bragging or complaining, but I would also like us tonight to consider the sacrifices of those in service to our country in the many and varied ways. Service that at times takes them far from their families for causes greater than self. Let us pray. Gracious God, of all the ways you have blessed our land, none is greater than the selfless spirit that inspires men and women to service for their fellow citizens, but also that others may fulfill their destiny in peace and with dignity. As this council convenes to lead and serve our community, watch over all those who serve and protect it. We remember them and ask for their well-being and safety. And we ask that this selfless spirit guide our work tonight and always. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. In accordance with the Brown Act, I'd like to announce that as a result of convening simultaneous meetings, the members of the Buena Sanitation District will receive compensation of $147.75 for the district meeting pursuant to Buena Sanitation District Ordinance 2006-1. The next thing will be the approval of our agenda by our City Manager, Patrick Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. There's one change this evening. We have item P1, which is the presentation scheduled for tonight, which was the American Heart Health Month, has been moved to the meeting of February 10th.
Okay, and we did have a closed session, so maybe our attorney would like to bring us out of the closed session.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, the council met in closed session tonight to discuss the items that are listed on CS1 in tonight's closed session agenda. No action was taken, and there is nothing to be reported at this time.
The next thing on our agenda is our consent calendar. The recommendations on the consent calendar will be enacted in one motion unless an item is removed from the calendar. Any member of the public may remove an item by submitting a request to speak card to our city clerk. And items removed from the consent calendar will be considered immediately following the adoption of the calendar. So I would like to know if any of our council members have anything to be removed.
C5.
Which one?
C5.
C5? Okay. Is that anything else? Anybody else? Okay, seeing no one else, we have no requests from the
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move that we approve the consent calendar, see item 1 through 4.
Have a second? Do we have a motion and a second? Please cast your votes. That motion passes unanimously for the consent calendar. We'll now do item C5 will be the next thing.
Would you like a report on this item, or okay?
Okay, then you want to go ahead and tell us why you pulled it?
The one comment that I had on this item, and I briefly made this concern the last time, is just the section where it says this can be done, and it's the red line version on 405, at a city council meeting. My only preference would be that we strike just that portion where it says at a city council meeting, so that it would read, this can be done by 2 members of the city council instructing the city manager to place an item on a future agenda. My concern is that some occasions we have somewhat lengthy time periods without a council meeting occurring, and it may result in some cases, foreseeable 2.5-month time frame between an item being requested to be put on an agenda and it getting on an agenda. So I'd just like to see that it read, this can be done by 2 members of the city council.
The only problem I can see with that is if you ask another person and they said no, then you couldn't talk to another person.
That
would be a Brown Act. I think we can ask the attorney.
Yes.
That'd be a Brown Act violation. So that would be the problem with that. So how would you know that other person wanted to do that?
Well, you wouldn't. That would be up to the individual making that request. And then obviously if that other council member said no, then you'd have to wait until the next council meeting to do that.
I think I prefer to leave it like it is, but I don't see anybody else who wants to speak. Anybody? Nobody wants to speak, then I'd make a motion to, okay, I see him now. Okay. Deputy Mayor Aguilera.
I was just going to make the motion to approve C5 as submitted.
Okay. Councilmember Rigby.
I also was going to move that we approve it as written, and I understand my colleagues' motivation for that, but I also have a little trepidation in if the council person that you approach for that said no, or not you particularly, but any council person in the future. I would think that's just too easily opening us up for jeopardy, and I wouldn't want to do that to my fellow council members. So I know why you said that and why you want to do that. And if the Brown Act wasn't a thing that we have to deal with, I'd say okay, but I wouldn't want to open us up for potential jeopardy or even the appearance of impropriety. So I would rather we leave it as is.
So is that a second?
That's a second.
Motion. Okay. Seeing no other speakers, I would ask you guys to cast your votes, please. That motion passes 4-1. Okay, the next thing on our agenda is our discussion item, which is CIP 8232 Paseo Santa Fe Streetscape Improvements, Phase 1, Award of Construction Contract and Purchase Agreements. And that would be John Conley is going to take that.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. This item tonight is a presentation or discussion item on the Paseo Santa Fe Streetscape Improvement. This is a project that's been envisioned by the city for many years, finally coming to fruition. The area of the improvement is between Vista Village Drive and Civic Center Drive on South Santa Fe, shown on the map. Crosses Main Street, Broadway, Eucalyptus, Guajome, Terrace Drive, and Palo Vista Drive. Some photos of the area. This is from Civic Center Drive looking north, continuing down the corridor, coming into the area where the sewer improvements are starting down near Guajome. And this is just past Guajome. This is the Paseo Point mixed-use project in the background, some traffic control in place. The project objectives were to transform South Santa Fe in this corridor into a complete and livable street, develop adjacent properties into mixed-use businesses where people can live and shop, and eliminate blight within the corridor. Some components of the project include traffic calming, which is a road diet or a reduction of lanes on South Santa Fe from 4 lanes to 2 within the corridor, including roundabouts at 3 locations, curb pop-outs for crosswalks and parking, angled parking along the whole corridor, and shared lane bicycle markings. Some walkability improvements that are proposed include wider sidewalks, landscaping, street lights, street furniture, enhanced pavement materials, a linear park down near Main Street and Broadway, and aesthetic improvement of the overall area. This is a conceptual plan. It's a little small detail, but it shows the entire corridor and from a conceptual level the areas that would be improved by the project. You can note there are 3 phases that are shown. When we initially designed this project, it was intended to be built in 1 phase with redevelopment money. Unfortunately, that's no longer available to us, so we broke it into phases and we're constructing it as funds are available. So Phase 1 is on the left in the green. That would be from Main Street down to Ocean View Drive. This is a close-up of the improvements that are going to be implemented in this area. The roundabout will be at Eucalyptus Avenue, and will also serve the mixed-use project that's under construction, which is on the lower part of the slide. Also will include angled parking on one side of the street and parallel parking on the other, as well as a number of pedestrian improvements I touched on. Here's a cross-section showing the street alignment with parking on the sides, 2 lanes down the middle. There'd be a median in the middle that would serve as a water quality filtration device, which I'll talk about, and the sidewalks and landscaping. There was a stormwater grant that was received by the city for this project, which included putting in a fairly detailed stormwater design that includes capturing the stormwater runoff in a center median and filtering it to the side of the street where it's captured in silva cells, which are large cells placed under the trees in the landscape area, where it's treated and trapped before it's let out into the stormwater system. We did some testing before, and we'll do some testing after for the requirements of the grant by the Regional Water Quality Control Board. This is a street view that shows an artist concept of a before and after with the improvements put in. This was provided to you about 2 years ago when we started the design phase. So total implementation is 3 phases. Phase 1 will be between Main and Ocean View, as I mentioned before. We'll also include restriping from Ocean View down to Palo Vista near Civic Center so that the 2 lanes will all go in at one time. It will include wet utility upgrade, which is nearing completion. That's already been awarded, and the dry utility undergrounding is ready to proceed. The total project cost is $6.7 million. This phase was allowed by a developer, the Paseo Point project that's under construction right now, which contributed $2 million to the project to allow us to initiate this process, as well as development of the linear park that will be built at the end of their project. Phase 2 between Ocean View and Terrace Drive is the next phase. This includes physical improvements and a roundabout at Guajome and Terrace where those 2 streets would be aligned. The estimated cost is $7 million, but we do not have funding for that project at this point. Phase 3 from Terrace Drive to Civic Center Drive includes improvements and a roundabout at Palo Vista, and we do not have a cost estimate for that as that's fairly far out at this point. For the streetscape construction contract that we're awarding this evening, we had a number of bidders. They were all pre-qualified. The bids were reviewed in December of last year with an engineer's estimate of a little over $5.3 million. Dick Miller Incorporated was the low bidder with a bid of just about $4.7 million, and that's who's recommended to be provided the project contract this evening. There are some purchase agreements included in the staff report for some materials and equipment that will be purchased by the city directly. Those include some ornamental street lights, signposts, and some cast iron furnishings that we will get a much better price on purchasing directly. That's permitted through our municipal code purchasing section that's noted in the slide. It's about $430,000. There are also some soft costs associated with the contract, which would include design and engineering services with Bucola and geotechnical services with Geosoils, Inc. for a little over $200,000. The construction costs are detailed here in the slide. The total cost, $5.8 million. Available funding is about $5.4 million, so we're asking for some additional funds this evening, about $380,000, which would come out of public facility funds for the streetscape furniture and traffic funds for the traffic improvements. Schedule for construction, the dry utility undergrounding will start in February, and if the contract is awarded this evening, streetscape construction will start in March. The west side of the street will remain closed as it currently is until about June or July, and then we'll swap over to the east side and start the construction on the other side, with completion of the project around the beginning of next year. And with that, staff is recommending award of a construction contract to Dick Miller, Inc., approval of the purchase agreements that were covered on the slide, amendment to the agreement with Bucola Engineering for design, amendment with Geosoils for geotechnical, and amendment of the CIP budget for the next fiscal year. And that completes my staff presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. We don't have any speakers on this, so I would open it up to our council members for any discussion.
No discussion. I don't, so I'd like to move that we approve this project.
Okay, do you have a second?
Second.
Councilmember Aguilera, Deputy Mayor Aguilera. You want to say something?
Yeah, I just had a question as to the 379,000. What primarily caused that? Why are we short 379,000? Is there just, I mean, we budgeted, right, earlier?
We had some material costs for the furniture that was not included in the original construction budget, so that upped it a little bit, and then some of the soft costs for design and geotechnical for the construction component of it were also not included in the original estimate. So if you add those up, that's actually more than 380,000, but that's kind of the reason for the overage.
Is that the 429?
That's correct.
Right, okay. Okay. Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, then I would cast your votes, please. That motion passes unanimously.
Mayor, before we start the public hearing, I just wanted to make a notice that I should have done up front. We have two changes that are made to the bicycle master plan item this evening and prior to or at the close of the publishing of the agenda. So one is the end of trip facilities paragraph on page 177 in the document has been revised and distributed to you. And page 202 has been revised to reflect cost estimates for the buffered bike lanes, and that's also been distributed to you.
Okay. So the next thing on our agenda is a public hearing. This is a public hearing for the Bicycle Master Plan, implementation actions, including our general plan amendment, development code amendment, and removal of on-street parking. This is a public hearing to receive testimony regarding the Bicycle Master Plan. And first, we're going to hear the staff report. Then the public will have an opportunity to comment. Those wishing to speak should present their speaker slips to the city clerk. And when I call your name, please come forward to the podium and speak directly into the microphone for no longer than 3 minutes. You have 3 minutes. Then it will be time for the city council to discuss the item. Once a public hearing is closed, there's no further opportunity for the public to address the council. So the public hearing is now open. The Community Development Director, John Conley, will present the staff report.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. With me this evening is Adam Feinstone, our Associate Planner, who is the project manager for this project, and he'll be presenting to you this evening.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. The item before you tonight is the update of the city's bicycle master plan. The update was funded by an active transportation grant that was awarded to the city by SANDAG in 2012. The bicycle master plan builds on information from the circulation element of General Plan 2030, as well as the previous bicycle master plan, which was approved in 2002. And the plan will be serving as a policy document for the future of cycling in Vista. The project involves a comprehensive update to the bicycle master plan in order to enhance the cycling environment within the city and to encourage cycling as an alternate mode of transportation. Minor amendments to the municipal and development codes regarding bicycle parking and bicycles on sidewalks, as well as to the bicycle and pedestrian circulation element of the General Plan 2030 circulation element, are also proposed. I will now provide a bit of brief information on the Bicycle Master Plan document. Scope of work included research and data collection efforts, as well as a public participation component, the result of which was the preparation of the plan before you tonight. Data collection regarding high potential cycling demands and high barriers to cycling were used to determine high cycling need areas, as shown on this map. You will see that the areas near downtown Vista and the Vista Townside area, as well as the area towards the west end of the city near Vista Village Drive and Emerald Drive, are determined to be high cycling need areas. Extensive community outreach was conducted as part of the project, and it included, among other things, 3 community public workshops at various stages of the process. Using the data collected and input received, the following 3 goals, along with supporting policies, were developed. Goal 1, a complete bicycle network that provides connections between transit, stops, residential neighborhoods, schools, recreational resources, employment centers, and activity nodes. Goal 2, safe and efficient bicycle facilities that are accessible to all users with appropriate and necessary amenities. And 3, increased use of bicycle facilities for utilitarian and recreational trips. Using those goals as a guide, bicycle facility recommendations were developed. They include separated facilities, which involve a physical separation between bicycles and vehicles, standard and buffered bike lanes, and where no other options were available, bicycle routes are proposed. In these locations, cyclists and vehicles share the right-of-way. Right outside Civic Center Drive, as you can see, is where what's shown in this picture on the bottom right, and it identifies a sharrow along with a sign saying that bicycles may use the full lane. That's an example of an existing bike route. The facility types identified on the previous slide were used in the development of the planned bicycle network. It includes both a citywide and a neighborhood network. Ideally, the citywide network would provide separated facilities such as a multi-use path or a cycle track. However, buffered bike lanes could also be used as a cost-saving measure in the interim, with physical barriers being installed at a later date if funding becomes available. The neighborhood network would have a mixture of shared and separated facilities. In all, almost 20 miles of new bicycle lanes would be added. Implementation of the network has been prioritized using demand-related, safety-related, and implementation-related criteria. And you can see on the map the locations where those priorities would be placed. For some reason the actual photo isn't here, but conceptual cross-sections have been developed for 20 highest priority segments, and an example should be on the slide. It's not, but we can provide that. Oh, there we go. Let me show you that again. It just shows the cross-section that potentially could be done on West Vista Way and Vista Village Drive. Again, these are conceptual. There's definitely changes that may or may not need to be made based on the existing rights-of-way and funding available at this point. Implementation of the proposed bicycle network includes the possible removal of on-street parking in certain locations shown in red on this map. Due to the inconsistent nature of the city's existing right-of-ways, it's not possible to identify the exact locations where this may happen. However, property owners who own property adjacent to the segments shown on here were notified of tonight's hearing as well as last month's Planning Commission meeting. In addition to the development of the Bicycle Master Plan and the Bicycle Network, the plan does include supporting programs in the areas of education and safety, encouragement, enforcement, and monitoring. The Planning Commission reviewed the Bicycle Master Plan at its December 16th, 2014 meeting and recommended approval of all aspects of the Bicycle Master Plan with a few exceptions, that being requiring further City Council action in order to remove parking on any streets and requiring end-of-trip facilities at all new commercial and industrial projects. They also did recommend approval of the general plan amendments and development and municipal code amendments. Staff recommends approval of the Bicycle Master Plan and associated amendments to those other documents. However, we do not recommend the changes that the Planning Commission did recommend. We recommend adoption as was proposed initially, where the council could, or where the Bicycle Master Plan approval would allow removal of parking at certain locations without coming back to City Council, and where end-of-trip facilities are encouraged rather than required. This concludes my presentation. At this point, Dr. Sherry Ryan with Chen Ryan and Associates, who was our consultant preparing the plan, and myself are both available for any questions you may have. Thank you.
So I see two people. Do you have council members have questions of the staff prior to the public testimony portion of the hearing? Is that what you're? Did you push these buttons, or are these from before? That's from before. Oh, they're from before. Okay. Clear that then. So I'll ask you a question then. Do any of you have any questions of the staff prior to the public speaking? No. No. Okay. We have 18 public speakers today, so I will. I'll call your names, and then I'll call the next person's name, so the next person can get up and get ready. So we have 3 minutes. First speaker is Ernest Blanco. And that will be followed by Michelle Iglesias.
Good evening. I live over on Melrose Drive. I just want to say I'm not opposed, and as many people might not oppose to the bicycle lane implementation, I'm just strongly opposed to the removal of parking on the streets. There isn't on the stretch from Olive to Copper, there is no way to go. If we're not allowed to park there, there is no way to go. And there's probably around 200 to 300 cars every day parked on the street from all the people that live around on the condominiums. And if we're not allowed to park there, where are we going to go? This is not going to encourage us to ride our bicycles. It's just going to be a kind of a disaster. So please, please let us still park. Last meeting, there was a couple of people that have businesses over on Melrose, and it will affect businesses and it will affect people. So it doesn't look like it's a well-thought plan, removing the cars from the streets. That's all I have to say. Please let us still park on the street. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next is Michelle Iglesias, followed by Philip Helmuth. Did Philip Helmuth, did you hear that next speaker, please?
Okay. Good evening. I'm speaking on the proposal to remove street parking on Melrose between Copper and Olive. The bike plan study plainly shows that the section of the road does not pose the danger to cyclists such that drastic accommodations are needed. According to the report, the crashes in the area have occurred at intersections, not straight sections of roads such as the area where parking currently exists, and no crashes have occurred. However, Melrose is a documented danger to pedestrians. Since 2011, 4 pedestrians have been struck on Melrose, 3 died. These crashes occurred to daywalkers due to a lack of nearby crosswalks. Removing parking will create the conditions for pedestrians to be struck and killed again. The average 75 cars parked on Melrose each night will migrate to Ascot and Silver, and there is no crosswalk back to the east side of Melrose, where most of the affected residents live. Existing crosswalks are not close, and many will choose to jaywalk. Assume that half of these cars belong to residents who live on the east side of the street. Each car trip requires 2 Melrose foot crossings for a total of 75 daily pedestrians in the road. Add in passengers and we pass 100. Compare this to a mere 12 cyclists that were observed during the street study period, a time which correlates to when a sizable portion of these pedestrians will be crossing. Pedestrian crossings are unsafe because they cross traffic, pop out between cars, and are hard to see at night in the poor street lighting. Contrast this to cyclists who tend to ride with the direction of traffic and are required to have lighting at night. The natural response is to add a crosswalk at Ascot. However, this will not be the solution that provides the access and safety that these many dozens of pedestrians need. Crosswalks are no guarantee of safety. My uncle was nearly killed in one. Drivers are less inclined to comply with crosswalks at uncontrolled intersections, and this intersection is dangerous as it is. There is no signal to turn from Ascot, which requires motorists to weave through stopped traffic on Melrose to turn. Heavy traffic blocks a safe line of sight, and northbound motorists often have their right-of-way violated. Removing the parking on Melrose adds at least 150 new car trips through this troubled intersection daily. Throw in 100 pedestrians for disaster. The only real solution is to add a signal to control vehicle and foot traffic, which is a very expensive and burdensome fix for all 12 cyclists who are not getting hurt here on their commutes. Simply put, removing the parking on Melrose forces vehicle and pedestrian traffic to mingle dangerously every day. The mid-block areas of Melrose, with heavily used and much-needed parking for our communities, are not a significant danger to cyclists, but do pose documented danger to pedestrians. Jaywalking is illegal and dangerous, but people will do it anyway. This bike plan is to improve cyclist safety, but it admits that cyclists cause 70% of crashes. People make dumb choices and get hurt. Let's help cyclists feel safer, but let's consider the real numbers of people impacted by a loss of parking instead of the what-ifs. I encourage this to be done by keeping the parking on Melrose and adding sharrows to the road to give bikes the room they want and residents safe walks to their doorsteps. Lower the speed limit if you must, but please consider how many pedestrians will have to face off with cars should you force them to park so far from home. Thank you.
I have a question, Michelle.
Yes.
Do you live in the apartments that on Melrose there? Do you live in the?
I live in the Melrose Park condos.
Do they? How many parking places are you allowed for your condo? Just out of, I was wondering.
We have one garage, we have one assigned parking space, and access to one visitor parking space, and we only have about 8 visitor parking spaces.
So for your condo, you have actually 2. You have one in the garage and one
Correct.
there.
However, I'm a single person, so I have the parking I need. However, I'm here for my community. So for a family that has a husband and wife, both have cars, And then teenagers or situations with roommates, there's possible for 3-4 cars, and those are the ones that are currently parked on the streets that we are concerned about.
Okay.
Thank you.
Philip Helmuth, followed by Lisa Wellens.
Good evening, Mayor Ritter and City Council members. My name is Philip Helmuth. I reside at Melrose Park Condominiums in the section that is being addressed this evening. I'm a bicyclist, so I'm excited about the upgrades that are being proposed for the bicycle master plan. However, I'm here specifically to address my opposition to the removal of on-street parking in that section of Melrose. As the previous speakers have said, there are a number of people who park on the street who are residents in that area, and as the previous speaker referred to, there is parking within the Melrose Park condominium complex. However, it seems to be inadequate to meet the needs of all of the residents of Melrose Park, and particularly if the on-street parking is removed, it is going to create a hardship for those who are visiting residents of Melrose Park, because there are very few visitor spaces within the complex. So if all of the parking spaces are taken up, anyone coming to visit residents of Melrose Park will have no place to park. In my particular situation, as the previous speaker referred to, I live in a one-bedroom condo with a garage and one parking space. However, my one parking space is halfway across the complex from where I live. I live right on Melrose, and my wife ends up parking on the street because she doesn't want to hike all the way across the complex to our parking space. So there are a number of issues going on here. The bottom line is removing on-street parking in that section of Melrose would, I believe, cause a significant hardship for the residents not only of Melrose Park, but also the mobile home park across the street, the businesses in the area. And I do not believe that the removal of on-street parking would significantly improve the safety situation for bicyclists. As I said, I'm a bicyclist myself. I ride Melrose. I may not like the cars whizzing by, but I don't think an extra 3 feet of bicycle lane space is really going to make it that much safer. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Lisa Wellens, followed by Camille Kay.
Mayor Ritter, council members, good evening. I live here in Vista, just a few blocks away. I'm here to speak in favor of the bicycle plan. Having raised a family here, I can say that implementing a plan like this is family-friendly and will increase livability for everyone in Vista. Improvements like bicycle paths, protected lanes, and safety upgrades that are included in the plan will make conditions safer for both cyclists and motorists. Implementing the plan will give Vistans more choice in how we get around. Bike infrastructure will enhance our quality of life. This is a beautiful city, and how fortunate we would be to be able to enjoy it at a slower pace, out in the fresh air and the sunshine. As a homeowner, I appreciate that real estate values increase when improvements like these are nearby. And I understand that business owners in other cities who have made improvements similar to those in the bike plan have said that it is good for business. There's so much to like about this plan. I appreciate that the priority areas are identified, costs are estimated, and that opportunities for grants and funding are included. You can be assured that this is a plan that was really shaped by the feedback of residents. My husband and I attended all of the workshops, along with so many others. We could see the plan come together over time and how it changed in response to our participation and feedback. So I just want to say to everyone who's worked on this plan, city staff, the people of Chen Ryan, Circulate San Diego, and my neighbors here in Vista who attended the workshops, good job. It was really well done. Thank you.
Thank you. Camille Kay, followed by Carolyn Givas.
Hi. I am one of the Melrose Park people that live there. I have a 3-bedroom condo, and I have 4 adults living in my condo, my husband, myself, and then my 2 sons. We have 3 cars, so we're already in a problem with just 1 garage and 1 parking spot, and then the other one has to take the street. If I want any guests over, then I really have nowhere to let them come over. And so it's such a detriment to all of us. There's nowhere in Melrose Park to expand. We're in one little round thing, and there's nowhere to go to add parking for those that lose their parking on the street. And so I would really appreciate you not doing this. When I moved in 1989, I was told, you know, you only have the 2 parking spaces, but there's always the street parking. And there has been, till now possibly. And so I would really appreciate you leaving the street parking for all of us in Melrose Park that need the extra room. Thank you. Thank you.
Caroline Givas, followed by Joan, is it Beleza?
Yes, I live at Melrose Park, and I really need the opportunity to speak against it, because the bottom line is that there is no place for us to park other than that. I'm only talking about the visitor parking pretty much, but it also concerns issues that we have when we have workers that are trying to get together and take care of things that we have in our complex, because we have lots of issues there. So I am strictly against the idea of removing any of the parking between Copper Drive and Olive. That area is completely always filled up, no matter what time of the day you want to do it. But it's just one of those things that lived there since 18. Excuse me. I've lived there since 1998, and I just feel that it's been taken away by a very simple majority of people that want to ride bikes, and that's okay. I appreciate that, and I'm all for the lanes that have already been processed. But to take away all of the parking, it's going to be very difficult, because right now I don't even have anybody that I can talk to that has got with that 200 that you said that you did a survey on. Nobody talked to me, and I haven't found anybody in the rest of the park that have talked to anybody about the survey either. So I'm very disappointed that you have managed to do this. So anyway, I hope that you do consider our issues, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Joan Beleza, followed by Scott Rogers.
Hi, I'm Joan Beleza. I'm also a resident and owner at Melrose Park Condos, and I'm against taking away the parking also. There's an adequate bike lane there. I drive up North Melrose most days of the week. There are very few bicyclists, and the ones I see are safe and fine. Nobody's harassing them, and I haven't ever seen any issues with bicyclists. We have, I think, 176 units there at Melrose, and we do have the parking, but there's only 14 visitor parking. There's no place for service vehicles to park when they come. There's no place for delivery men to park. The mailman doesn't have a place to park. He has to use somebody else's spot who happens to be at work that day. So the parking spots out on the street are full every day, every night. So they're essential. So changing the bike lane isn't essential because it's adequate, but changing the parking, removing the parking would be, you'd just be creating a huge problem. So please consider that, and thank you for listening.
Thank you. Scott Rogers, followed by Christina Lugaroka.
Mayor Ritter, Board. My name is Scott Rogers. I'm the president of the Homeowner Association at Melrose Park. I have 176 units that live in there, and they've told you that they have one garage and one assigned spot. We have 11 visitor parking spots throughout the property. The property, because of the way it's shaped and size, there's nowhere for us to expand. There's no other parking that's available to us other than Melrose itself. However, when I looked at your plan and when I saw what you guys wanted to do, I commend you for, thinking of the safety of all these bicyclists. But like the young lady spoke earlier, she said that most of the accidents aren't occurring on bicyclists that are in straight sections of road. They're through intersections and things like that. What I would say is, go ahead and put your plan together, figure out a way to make the lane, it safer for places. But that section that everybody's been talking between Olive and Copper, leave that section as is. And if you need to reroute the, you could run them down Olive, down to Vista Way, which is one of your high traffic areas that you want, and then you can bring them back down Vista Way and can continue down Melrose. There's that small little section of road right there. There is just, for the people who live in the mobile park across from me, my property, and the other properties in that school that's right across the street from us, they need that parking because there is no other parking. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. Christina Lugaroka, followed by Arthur Lujan.
Hello. Thank you. I'm Christina Lugo, and I'm an owner-resident here at Melrose Park Condominiums in Vista. We are located between Olive and Copper Road on Melrose. I do not want a bike lane to take place of our street parking. This would negatively affect our condo values, and it would also make it impossible to have friends or family over to visit, as there will not be any parking available to them. Parking availability on Melrose is an absolute necessity. It's not a want, it's a necessity, as all of our units only get 2 parking spaces per unit, regardless if they're 1 or 3 bedrooms. We're asking that you please find a different bike lane or bike route for this bicycle route that you're trying to implement, because it's definitely a necessity. I went around last night with my partner, and we got 86 signatures. We knocked on over 100 condos, and we left notices on everybody. A lot of people did not get the first notice, or maybe they didn't realize that that there was a plan to eliminate parking on Melrose. But every single person I talked to, just about from our condos, signed this form saying that they do not want our parking removed. It's not that we're against bicycling. I have 3 bicycles in my garage. I'm all for it, but just not in front of my street. My partner is also a disabled veteran, and the closest parking space to our unit is in front of the condo, which is on the street, because the other parking space is all the way up the hill in the back of the condos, and that's all we have. So, for him, he's disabled. We don't have an option. We don't have a choice. If people are all for the bike plan, that's great, but they might live in a different section on Melrose that wouldn't, hurt their ability to park themselves or their friends or their family members. I also have a 14-year-old daughter. She will probably be getting a car soon, within a couple years. I won't have anywhere to put her car. This is an absolute necessity. It's not a want. It's not that we don't like bicyclists. It's not, anything about that. It's just, we just need this parking. And it will also affect our condo values, because if we're trying to resell our homes and people say, hey, we only have 2 parking spaces, there's 3-bedroom units in there. They're not going to have anywhere to park that third person, or have children that will, be able to park anywhere. So I'm completely opposed to this, and not to the bicycle plan itself, but to eliminating the parking in our area. Thank you.
Arthur Lujan, followed by Bonnie Kusara.
Hello, my name's Arthur Lujan. That's my wife right there. We live at Melrose Park condo. I'm a disabled veteran. It's true, we do have a garage, and we do have a parking space, and it's a pretty good walk from my parking space to my condo. I live right down the street, And, you know, I do prefer to park on the street because it is a shorter route. You know, I've heard everybody say everything they had to say, but it's like, as far as the participation and the public participation and stuff like we did, we went last night, 170 condos. I got 80-some signatures, and I got 90-some people said they didn't even heard about none of this, you know. And, you know, my biggest thing is like, it's this public, you know, this biking thing is almost 47 miles long, and we're asking for like maybe not even 2 miles of a stretch where we need to park, you know. And I'm totally opposed of it, you know. We do have a bike lane, and like the lady said earlier, I might see maybe 2 or 3, maybe four bike people in, you know, a week's time. And when I do see them, I do respect them, and I don't open my door and I let them go right by me. But 9 times out of 10, when I see people on their bikes, they're usually on the sidewalk. So I get upset because the bikers themselves don't even use the bike lane. They're on their sidewalk, and I've seen people move their baby carriages, their dogs, and they have to actually get on the street because the bike's coming down the sidewalk, and they're not even respecting us as far as, you know, their own bike lane. So I just feel that, you know, I like the bikes. We have 3 bikes. We do the biking thing. But at the same time, I just feel that, you know, if we're going to, you know, put in our, you know, our part of it, they need to put their part of it too. And I don't feel that they should be using the sidewalk, you know, which is, okay, I can't control that. But at the same time, if you look from where we live at in our parking zone, we have a little spot. That's it. From the rest of the, if you go back all the way to the 78 freeway, all the way to Oceanside Boulevard, there is no parking because there's businesses. So we're already cut off on Melrose as it is, you know. So now they're taking this from us, and it's like I just feel that we just totally oppose it. And as far as the public participation, I just feel that they never participated with nobody. Nobody asked us. We got a letter in the mail. And like I said, 170 people, I got 90 people to sign for me, 86 people to sign for me, and the rest of them, and nobody even the 86 that signed, I think half of them said they even heard about this bike thing. So I don't understand where they're coming with this public participation thing, and they're all for it. And nobody asked us. We got a letter in the mail, and that was it. And the people that don't own the place, the ones that rent, they didn't even get nothing in the mail. So if you're a renter and you live at this, you know, Melrose where we live at, you didn't even get nothing in the mail saying that this is what's going on. So totally oppose it. I please appreciate if you guys would help us out and oppose it with us. Thank you.
Bonnie Cusero, followed by Margaret Day.
Thank you. Protected bike lanes and side paths are a must on Vista's higher speed major arterial roads throughout our community. My husband and I are both bicyclists. We are homeowners since 1989 in Vista, 88 actually, November of 88, in the Shadow Ridge area. We raised our son here, and we hope to retire here in a couple of years and enjoy more bicycling. We find ourselves gravitating, however, more to other communities with our bikes and enjoying their bicycle infrastructure, which feels much safer to us. And we spend our money there in those communities, at their restaurants and at their coffee shops. I'd much rather have that money spent here in Vista. So, sorry, I just lost my note. It is increasingly dangerous to be a bicycle rider or a pedestrian these days. Too many auto drivers are dangerously distracted. This has been demonstrated by the numbers of cars that we hear about in the news that have been mowing down bike riders throughout the county and pedestrians. In addition, there are all of those that have been crashing their cars into homes and businesses. This reason, for me, is the top one in my mind to create protected bike lanes and protected side paths. 2, we are in dire need of safe routes to schools. This plan is a good one, and it addresses this long overlooked necessity. And last, we need practical, safe, reasonably sized bicycle infrastructures like the one in this proposed plan that would provide all bike riders, including school-aged kids, K through 12, with safe routes throughout the city between homes and schools and businesses. It would provide connectivity between neighborhoods and between our city and neighboring cities, and the rail trail once it's built, which we're very excited about. The scale of this proposal is very practical. It's large enough to meet the needs of the bicycling community, yet it is still fundable. There is funding out there. In summary, I urge you to support this plan. And as a footnote, I do empathize with the folks that have been speaking about their lack of parking. Somehow, perhaps something can be implemented within the plan for those folks at the condos to perhaps move the protected bike lane inwards of the parking. In other words, there's still street parking, but it's possible also to have a protected bike lane between the parking and the apartments.
Thank you. Thank you. Margaret Day, followed by Gary Kreimer.
Hi, good night, and thank you. I work with the Palms Mobile Home Park in Vista. It's a mobile home park that has homeowners, and I work with the owner. One of my concerns was in the meeting in December, they said that there was extensive communication with the community. Out of these 78 homeowners who are on the tax records, no one received any notice ever. The park owner received one notice for the final meeting at his home address. It did not come to the park. It did not go to our address that's on record with the city. It went to his home. No one in the park knew until recently. Excuse me. Out of the options, Melrose is a very large street. There are other options. The last lady came up with a brilliant one. It seemed as though they just came up with a plan to remove parking because it was easy. Let's make a quick recommendation. It was not required. It was not given the information to the community. I just think that we could use a little more time to give something that's good for the bicyclists as well as for the people. Thank you.
Thank you. Gary Kreimer, followed by Charlene Luton.
Hello, my name's Gary Kreimer. I'm a owner of a condominium at the Melrose Park. As you see, there's been a number of people that live in this Melrose Park condominium complex. And as has been stated before, there are 2 parking places, 1 garage, 1 assigned parking spot. There are multiple people that do not have parking places because of the amount of people living in each unit. 3-bedroom units that might have 4 people that drive cars, and there's only 2 parking places. As been stated before, there's a limited amount of visitors parking spaces. I am an owner, but I have a tenant. I'm in my complex. Most of the people, I'm not sure what the percentage is, but I received notice of this at my home, whereas most of the people, or some of the people that live in the complex, are tenants, and they don't receive this information. So this gentleman over here, who was walking through, getting people that did not know about this because they're renters, the owners may be living out of state, didn't take time to notify them. So it's a necessity for that parking on that. Coming over here, I stopped and took measurement of the existing bicycle lane that is there. It is 54 inches wide, and that is not counting the 7-inch stripe that is on the outside. And then there's another 5-inch stripe on the inside. So you've got a total of 66 inches of clearance before you have the cars to the sidewalk. And then the sidewalk, I did not measure that, but I'm pretty sure the sidewalk's about 70 inches wide. So I'm all for the bicycle master plan, but in this particular area where there is very limited parking for owners and tenants of the Melrose Park, and then the mobile home park on the other side, on the west side of the street. I also measured my bicycle handlebars. I'm a bicyclist, not an avid bicyclist, but I'm a bicyclist, so a typical mountain bike is anywhere. I've got two bicycles. I measured one was 24-inch wide handlebars, the other one was 26. So when you have, with counting the stripes, you've got 66 inches of clearance. Seems like, to me, plenty of safety area for a bicyclist to ride. Unlike I know there are several areas in this bicycle master plan that do not have the bicycle lanes, and it is unsafe. But in this particular area, I believe the bicycle lane gives plenty of safety area for a bicyclist, and in order to keep the existing parking. That's what I have to say here.
Thank you. Charlene Newton, followed by Kathleen Ferrier.
Honorable Mayor and council members, I am also an owner-resident of Melrose Park Condominiums and a bicycle owner, a bicycle rider. I agree completely with the goals. You put out the top 3 goals for the plan, but however, the removal of parking on Melrose is just not acceptable. At the time we purchased our condos and people signed long-term leases, they had the assumption that they would have parking on the street. To take that away is really definitely affecting our quality of life. As it is now, even with the 1 space and 1 parking spot, I have Bible study fellowship groups and things that I participate in that I cannot have at my residence because of lack of parking. There is the bike lane there. It seems sufficient for the current bicycle traffic. It could be restriped to make it more prominent that is a bicycle lane. The parking on Melrose also serves as a deterrent to excessive traffic, because I know when I'm coming out of the complex and I'm going south onto Melrose, those cars are really accelerating. When they know that people are parking, they're going to be walking in and out of the pulling out and pulling in. It really affects their speed and it causes them to slow down a little bit. So, like I say, I agree completely with the plan, but however, the removal of parking is unacceptable. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathleen Ferrier, followed by Joseph Nevins.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Kathleen Ferrier, and I'm here representing Circulate San Diego. We are a regional organization, nonprofit organization that promotes mobility choices and safe and healthy, vibrant neighborhoods. And we had the pleasure of working with the city on this plan, and specifically on the outreach component, and wanted to come out and support approval of the plan tonight and let you know that in the outreach that we did, we had a wide variety of stakeholders, a wide variety of ages, older adults, young people. We had businesses participate, the school district, and there was a lot of support for the plan. The city did a really good job of responding to the danger zones or the dangerous areas that were communicated in the process, and so that's always a really good sign of a plan. So they listened to the input that they got at the workshops and implemented it in the plan that's in front of you today. I also wanted to let you know that we heard a lot of comments from people saying that they would bike more in Vista if they felt safe. They don't feel safe. So the protected bike lane, the other kinds of facilities that are outlined in the plan will help get more people biking in Vista. And if more people bike, then maybe there will be fewer people in cars and make room for other people in cars. Also wanted to comment that this bike plan, of course, will help the city implement your general plan, the circulation element, but also don't forget that you have a health element, and this will certainly provide for opportunities for people in Vista to be healthy. And I think that's it. So thank you again.
Thank you. Joseph Nevins, followed by Andy Hanshaw.
Good evening. My name is Joseph Nevins. I represent property owners here in Vista. I manage rentals. I got the notices. I came to the workshops. My tenants didn't. They told me about it. They got notices, but they weren't terribly interested, so they didn't go. I went to the workshops. I went to the last meeting. I thought it was a great plan. It's going to be wonderful. And I'm also considering one of our properties, giving the city some room to put a actual bike path around. We're on Foothill. We have people walking through the Foothill where it makes that right angle corner going over to Brangville Park. It's extremely dangerous for pedestrians. It's really bad. So if the plan comes up and you guys want to put a trail through, we'll give you some land. We'll actually help, go through there. As for my properties, there's only one of them that was developed with inadequate parking, and we've managed to make an arrangement with our neighbor. So we have one tenant parks on the neighbor's property since there's a little bit of an overflow. So I was concerned the last meeting, and everybody came up and said, "Oh, you're gonna kill us. You're gonna take away our street parking. We won't have any place. We can't live." So I went out and I actually rode my bike through some of these parks, and wow, lo and behold, they have parking, but they don't put cars in it. It's full of stuff. It's storage. They've got room in front of their homes and stuff on the streets, but the park manager won't let them park there. They've got overflow parking, but again, they're storing stuff in it. So they have parking. They just don't want to use it. They want the city to give them free parking in the street. They've got extra parking up in the hill. "Oh, I don't want to walk a little ways over there. It's too far. I'll just park on the street." Well, if they're going to have the parking, it shouldn't be free. Developer didn't put it in adequately, whatever. I pay for my parking. I own the land. I pay taxes. I pay to park my tenants. We provide it. We pay for it. We don't park in the street. If you want to park in the street, let's put meters on the street. Let's see where that brings us. Oh, yeah. Let's put meters. You want to park in the street? Pay for it, folks.
Wait.
Okay.
We need to have order. I'll have to call a recess if we don't have order. Please be respectful.
All right. So, and another reason, people won't ride their bikes on that street. Now, there's kids. There's a school. Moms put their kid in the car. They drive 5 or 6 blocks. The kids could walk or ride to school if that street was safer. So we do need to do it. We do need to take some parking out. People got to reassess where they're at. They got to pay for stuff. Everything shouldn't be free. And we need to encourage it. We need to get our kids out walking and riding and being healthy, because we have a new generation coming up. We've got this massive obesity epidemic going on. We need to address it. And this is a good first step. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Andy Henshaw, followed by Thomas Savage.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Andy Henshaw. I'm the executive director of the San Diego County Bicycle Coalition. We are our region's bicycle advocacy organization. I am here tonight to support the Bicycle Master Plan as recommended and providing safe, accessible transportation choices for residents and visitors to the city of Vista. The Bike Coalition works to promote bicycling as a mainstream, safe, and enjoyable form of transportation and recreation. All across our region, cities are realizing that they must accommodate all road users and improve the safety and connectivity in order to ease congestion and create healthy, active, and vibrant communities. Bike parking is parking, and I encourage you to not compromise the integrity of this plan to implement just to accommodate more cars and free parking. Adding bike lanes and safe places for individuals and families to access their homes, their work, their schools, and their local businesses makes great sense for the health and economic vitality of Vista. Giving people safe options to ride for work and play enhances not just the cycling environment, but the quality of life of its citizens. So please support this plan as recommended. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thomas Savage, followed by Ruth Abad.
Good evening. I just wanted to start off by saying I have sympathy for everyone's oppositions on the street parking and the elimination, but however, bicyclists don't feel safe, and on the other hand, there's a lot more people, riding bikes these days due to job situations and teenagers who, have to get around. So, I support the plan. I don't know. I'm not educated on the whole bicycle master plan, but for the most part, I support it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. Ruth Abed, followed by Diane Nygaard.
Good evening. Thank you for having this hearing. I live on Casablanca Court in Shadow Ridge, And I want to thank the city for spending the time and resources to develop a bicycle and pedestrian plan, which I support. I enjoy biking with my friends and extended family, mainly around the Shadow Ridge neighborhood down to Buena Creek. We would love to bike further in town, down to the farmer's market and into town to dine and shop, but feel there aren't a lot of safe options to do that, especially around Melrose Avenue. So I'm asking the city, when implementing the plan, to please focus on improving the safety aspects of it. The plan includes many good recommendations, such as side paths, shared off-road use paths, and buffered bike lanes using bollards and other barriers. I would like to see these recommendations given priority, as well as the multiple recommendations in the education and enforcement sections of the plan, which would increase safety. So we believe the network of safe bicycle options improves the quality of life for our family and improves our health, and is also good for the Vista community. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you. Diane Nygaard, followed by Gail Hosfeld.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. Diane Nygaard, representing Preserve Calavera. It seems like usually when our North County Conservation Group comes before bodies like this, we're fussing at you, but that is not the case tonight. Congratulations to you for having the foresight to getting this project started, and to staff for doing such a good job on it. When we make investments in things like bicycles, we're really giving people choices, and it makes the investment in all the rest of our transportation system work better. Our streets work better, our sidewalks work better, it works better for everybody. So let's be careful and not throw out the baby with the bathwater here. This is a good plan. If we need to do some things to address, legitimate concerns with parking, then let's do that. But having a plan will make your city eligible for some additional funding from Sandig, from grants. That's a real benefit to the entire community. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Gail Hosfeld? Oh, okay, she left. Okay, she was our last public speaker. So with that, I will ask the council. I have, are these new requests to speak? Yes, okay, then we'll start. Councilmember Rigby.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And first, I would like to say thank you to everyone here tonight. Whichever side of the aisle you came down on this, I appreciate that you took time out of your schedule to come out here tonight and talk to us, and I thank you for that. I agree with some of the parking concerns throughout the city, not just down Melrose, and I know that there are some serious areas that are impacted greatly by on-street parking, and so I have some concerns with that myself. And pardon me, I would prefer that we keep in the bicycle master plan that it does, the removal of on-street parking does come before City Council, and that it's not done with a broad brush throughout the entire city. So that's one of my recommendations. I do have a couple of questions. When talking about removal of parking, and when the City Council, if my colleagues agree with that, when notice is given to the residents or the owners, whichever way you do that, it says in here that it would be a 30-day notification. I would like to see that increase to give people more notice than a month. I think 30 days, or I'm sorry, 60 days would be a fair timeline for people to have some notification and be able to look it up, research what's happening, and then contact the city. So that's another thing I'd like to see. I think it's section 7, section 7 of the Bicycle Master Plan talks about education and programs that need to be implemented or would be offered as opportunities for the community. And all of the things that I saw in there had to do with motorists being more educated and aware of the bicyclists, and I think that's a good goal. I would also like to see that there's education for the bicyclists as well. And I think that the report, when it talked about of the 59 motorist versus bicycle accidents that happened in the 5-year period that they talked about, 70% of those accidents were the bicyclists at fault, where the bicyclists were in the right-of-way of the automobile, or they were, for other reasons. One of the questions I had were, for the 30% where the motorist was at fault, it didn't say in the report why. There was a pie chart that described all the different reasons that the bicyclists were at fault, but there was no description to the 30% where the motorists were at fault. Do we know in particular detail or what caused the motorists to be at fault particularly? I know people say they automatically assume it's distraction, but we can't automatically assume that.
We don't have the detailed reports from all of those crash reports, unfortunately. We just have the summary of what was provided in the bike plan. It would require some additional research to provide that information.
Okay. And I think the fact that 70% of the accidents were bicyclists were at fault for various reasons would indicate that there does need to be some education for bicyclists. And just as we require motorists who are driving down our streets to be educated and licensed, I think it's important if we're looking at a bicycle master plan network and we're inviting more bicyclists into the street, and it's becoming more of a mode of transportation and not just a hobby, and it's not just a Sunday drive afternoon, that it's the way people are traversing our city. It's important that we recognize that bicyclists need to be safe, and they also need to understand the rules of the road and to keep themselves safe as much as motorists need to be aware and keep them safe. So I'm not, I don't think that element in this bicycle master plan is complete. I find it to be very incomplete, actually. So I don't know what we can do to look into some of those programs. I don't know how you would go about doing that. And I know we talked about this. And in the parts about the program for bicyclists in the schools and things, it says that there are opportunities for them to have it. I don't want it to be an opportunity. I think it needs to be mandatory. I think when we're looking at a city the size of almost 100,000 people and you're looking at this much bicycle network, it's important that everybody, before we let them on the road willy-nilly, that they are educated. So I don't know how we go about doing that, not just through the public school district, but for private schools as well. We want to make sure that all of our residents are covered in some kind of an education program for bicycling. One of the other things also, and it was brought up on sidewalks, bicycling on sidewalks is actually against the law in Vista. Some people might not have been aware of that, but it is. And part of the bicycle master plan, and one of the resolutions we're voting on tonight talks about revising the development code for bicycles on sidewalks to include it being permissible in areas of the bicycle network where there is no bike lane in the street for them, and that it will be striped. Can you describe what that striping will be, and if those particular sections of sidewalk would be enlarged to accommodate pedestrians and bicycles?
Sure. The locations would be where we would have what's called a side path, which is basically a sidewalk that's wider, usually it would be about 10 feet, where you'd have part of it used by pedestrians, part of it used by cyclists. The two locations in the plan that do have that called out, the side path, that's more or less the only viable option other than a shared, cyclist in the right-of-way, which on the types of streets they're on is really not a great idea. But the sidewalks in those areas are nearly 10 feet at this point. It's Sycamore south of the highway and Melrose south of the highway near the courthouse.
Okay, so that's roughly 3 additional feet to what a sidewalk is now. Is that correct?
Sidewalk widths are generally 5 feet.
5 feet. So
In some commercial areas, they're 8 to 10 feet. In the areas where we're proposing the side path, they're all 8 to 10 feet.
okay. And they'll be clearly striped for pedestrian, bicycle, and then clearly marked with signage.
That's correct. Additional striping and signage would be required to implement the plan in those locations.
Okay, and then when those sections of sidewalk end and bicyclists are merging back into the roadways will be identified how to alert motorists that bicyclists are merging back onto the road.
The striped bike lanes would capture the traffic from the sidewalk coming back, so there'd be striping in the street to accommodate the bicycles.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. On the storage lockers, there was, in again, one of the resolutions that we'll be approving tonight, and it talked about the storage lockers that were recommended for apartments, multi-level or multi-unit housing. And it says in C, which would be the development code with respect to parking, bicycle parking, it says the bicycle storage space is required by subsection B above, which just says 1 space for 5 units, without a private garage, shall be fully enclosed in a fully enclosed structure provided with security cameras. But in the report that was done by Chen Ryan in the bicycle master plan, it says that fully enclosed lockers are expensive and large. So I was thinking if that's an onerous aspect to a new development, having to provide the fully enclosed lockers. And I was wondering if there was a way that we could modify that so that they still had the ratio, but maybe not make it so onerous that it's a large and expensive private locker for every single one of those bicycles. Is there a way to do that?
It's at the council's discretion, so you may choose to modify that recommendation. Our recommendation was based on the fact that people who live in multifamily housing that don't have a space to put their bike in their garage should have some enclosed type of unit, like a locker to put their bike in. If you don't have something that's covered and enclosed, it's going to get worn out by the weather or subject to getting stolen, et cetera. So
I was thinking versus individual, because the resolution says individual lockers.
So like a group locker.
Like a group locker.
Absolutely, that could be facilitated.
So that, I don't know for bicyclists if that's an issue that you would share a locker and each, they would have an individual little space in the big locker.
You either have a locker space that you can fit a bike in and lock up, or you have a large room essentially that you can bring your bike into and lock up. I don't know the development costs would be that much different.
Okay. Do you know places that have the larger room where it's just for bicycle lockup?
Some of the housing projects that we have developed have bike storage inside their garage areas or in their mixed-use storage areas, so that has been a concept inside the building, not outside.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just make a comment, if you don't mind, on that? I used to live in an apartment down in San Diego, and it was undesirable to have shared storage because stuff gets ripped off that way. I mean, by the people that live in your own apartment place, I think you want to have individual.
Okay.
I think that would be most preferred.
Okay, thank you. And then you can see from my tabs, I have a ton of comments, but I'm just going to close with maybe one or two. Somebody came up and talked about the percentage of Vistans who felt unsafe and through the surveys that they did. And it did say here that 40% of people surveyed do not feel safe cycling in the current conditions, which reflects 60% of the respondents did say they felt safe bicycling in the current conditions. And I appreciate advocating for your position, but let's not lose sight of what's actually in the report that the city commissioned to have done. And I think it's important that you remember that. And the only other question I had would have been for Chen Ryan. Did you say that Sherry Ryan was here?
That's correct.
Oh, in the public workshops that were done, there didn't seem by the numbers that were in the report that there were that many people considering the size of the community and the bicycle community that we're talking about. And I wondered how many people, and we've heard that several people went to all of the meetings, and you talk about X number of people came to these workshops. How many of the people that were in that number were repeaters that went to every workshop? I mean, how many of the 100 and some were actually different people?
We could figure that out based on the sign-in sheet, but I couldn't report that to you right here off the top of my head. But we could get that information to you for sure.
I was just
we do have
curious,
sign-in sheets. Yeah.
Because I wouldn't want a number that we had, you know, the same 10 people counted multiple times.
Okay.
So, okay, thank you.
Councilwoman Rigby? Just from my experience at the meetings, I believe that probably 10 to 12, maybe 15 people were at all three meetings, or two of the three, that kind of thing. So there were repeat, people who were very interested in the topic came back each time.
So when you put the number in the report of X number of people attended the meetings, were those people counted just once, or were they counted all three times?
So I don't recall, I don't know exactly where in here you're asking about, but if there was some information saying the workshop 1 had this many attendants, workshop 2 had that many.
Mm-hmm.
Each of those numbers represent that specific workshop.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And thank you, Ms. Ryan. I appreciate you.
Councilmember Franklin.
Just while you're on that survey note, I can't help but jump in on that and say that information has no basis in scientific method based on the way it was collected, and therefore really is not a moving statistic. And I kind of think that kind of statistic should be called out as one that is not scientific and really is more confusing, because it might tend to communicate the idea that it is representative, but it's not. A survey that's not designed in a scientific method doesn't produce any kind of scientific or accurate result. I just want to say I'm a strong supporter of cycling. In past years, I've been a very avid cyclist. I've invested a lot in my cycling hobby. I've got 4 bikes in my garage. I really do support the goals of the Bicycle Master Plan and the update to the Bicycle Master Plan. And in discussions with staff in trying to understand some of these situations, I'm also aware that there are other considerations in adopting this plan, funding for maintenance of our transportation system in our city, access to transportation dollars, that if we don't comply with the requirement to have the BMP, we don't access those funds. So that's compelling on its own. And of course, the other thing is there are some aims that maybe aren't expressly stated, which are some opportunities to bring a new image to some parts of the city. I support those aims strongly. However, I agree with Councilwoman Rigby that I'm not satisfied at this exact moment in time to proceed with the removal of street parking. I don't feel that, I looked on the Google Street View and the satellite image on my phone here at the space in front of the Melrose Park. And I also looked in the presentation and noted that there was 1 bicycle collision in the last 4 years in that stretch of road. As somebody who has, I've cycled a lot. I've cycled a lot in Vista. I can tell you, generally speaking, as a cyclist, if you say that you feel safe on the roadway, then you're not a good cyclist. I never feel safe. And no cyclist should ever feel safe on the roadway. I'm as much as I am an advocate of cycling, and it took me, when I was 18 through about 24, I was a daredevil on a bicycle. And then after having been subject of a collision, it was not my fault, with an automobile, I've begun to understand that just because you have the right-of-way doesn't mean you're right. And so, you know, I can also personally testify that having a mindset towards constantly, regardless of the true right-of-way, you have to always yield to automobiles. Otherwise, you know, it doesn't matter what your legal right is if you're in a collision with a 2,000-pound car and you're on a bike. So, you know, there's a lot that's really good in this. You know, better, it improves our community. There's opportunities not just to improve amenities, but to improve the aesthetic value of some parts of our community. I was also moved by staff's explanation that we had a lot of great opportunities as we're resurfacing to achieve some of these ends without great additional cost. However, where I'm at right now, and I apologize, I have to beg ignorance, are we going to vote 7 times, or not 7 times, are we going to vote on each of these resolutions individually, or are we going to vote on them en banc?
I would move whatever the motion becomes.
Okay. I would not vote in favor of all of these resolutions because at the present time, I'm not in favor of adopting the parking removal ordinance. You know, and I know a lot of folks are here tonight from Melrose Park, and I did have a chance to look at that specific concern this evening because so many residents raised it. And in that specific area, I have to say that with the information I have in front of me right now, I tend to agree with the residents that came to speak tonight. However, you know, I just want to say I know that there are going to be areas that we're going to have to make changes, and I am not opposed to all changes, but you know, and this is one thing I communicated to staff, as much of an advocate of cycling as I am, and I truly am, and I'm a friend of cyclists, I still believe that our transportation system in our city has to, the first priority of our transportation system has to be to accommodate people traveling to work, traveling to school, and you know, making our economy work, and the vast majority of those trips are automobile trips. And you know, so I believe that we have to continue to accommodate the automobile, and I would like to see us do good things to advance alternative modes that aren't necessarily, you know, to the great expense of the convenience of citizens who are trying to get to work and school and other things. Those are my comments.
Deputy Mayor Aguilera.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, the good news is nobody is against cycling. It doesn't sound. I don't think I heard anybody say that they're against cycling.
I didn't talk yet.
But I've seen you out there on your unicycle, so I know you're a cyclist. So, you know, and one of the other comments that I wanted to address as well was that, you know, people weren't part of the process, but, you know, we got a whole room of people here. So you are part of the process, and thank you to the people that came up and spoke because you immediately became part of the process. And those of you that are here, I thank you as well, you know, as observers. So one of the things that I noticed was that I think we counted 160 cyclists on sometime in December, over 2 days. And we have like 170 units in this one place, and I think this is kind of what my colleagues are talking about, you know, so we do have to take that into consideration. At the same time, Vista is not bike-friendly in a lot of areas, so I really appreciate staff, their effort, and all the other people behind them that have given them some assistance in this area. Our contractor that helped us with this. I've been thinking about this. When I was campaigning in November, I stopped at Melrose Park. I spent a lot of time there, and I had to park on the street. And so I understand your pain. Yeah, and I drive by some of the businesses on North Melrose every day, so I understand, you know, what they're going through. They have customers that they want to accommodate as well. So I've spoken to bicyclists, I've spoken to cyclists, and I've spoken to business owners and some property owners. And I'm wondering if someone mentioned this earlier, and I've talked to staff about this already. I'm wondering if we could, in those areas where we're talking about removing parking, swap, especially on Melrose where we already have a bicycle lane, swapping spaces. In other words, put the parking inside or outside, and then put the cyclists towards the curb. That way, there's still parking available for everybody. The cyclists have a natural buffer by having cars there. And I know that, like my wife, she says, well, that's not going to work because people are going to park crooked or whatever. But if we were able to put some sort of a curbing there to force, to force people to park against that curb, they cannot cross over into that bike lane. And we could control the parking that way, and cyclists would have a safe place to travel in between the curb and the cars. Is that something? Because I know we don't have the money to do all of this right now. So we're probably looking at getting grant money. So can we make changes to this plan to accommodate that in some of these areas so we don't remove parking?
The short answer is yes, we can make accommodations for the parking, particularly on North Melrose. It's probably not something we can do on all of the other segments. We'd have to look at those individually. If the council opts not to adopt the resolution that allows us to remove parking without coming back to council, we would have to revisit all those items when we come back and design the bike lanes for those certain segments. The plan lays out a general idea of what we should do with respect to striping and accommodating bikes. It's not an absolute must-do. When we go in and actually stripe those roads, we're going to have a CIP project that has a full design down every street and looks at every nook and cranny. We haven't gotten to that level at this point. We've simply come up with what we think we can do with the width of the road. With respect to putting parking outside the bike lane, it's an option. We try not to do it in areas where there's commercial driveways where people are turning in and out a lot because bikers behind cars have conflicts with people turning in the driveway. So if we have long stretches of road where we don't have a lot of driveway access or a lot of movement in and out of those driveways, then we may be able to facilitate that. We will certainly look at that. North Melrose Drive is going to be repaved this summer, and so we're going to have to address that issue. It sounds like there are definitely some solutions to maintain parking on that stretch and provide the bike lanes, and we'll come back to the council and share those design scenarios depending on the direction tonight.
Okay. I mean, does that sound acceptable? We're not removing any parking. We're just swapping it out, moving it around.
I had that same idea, and, you know, I kind of realized, again, some of the outside, I can see...
Microphone.
I can see the potential safety implication, but, you know, again, it comes down to, and there is zero way to make the street safe for cyclists completely, other than
That's understood.
Other than a physically barriered, you know, and that's obviously not, you know, it's just not possible everywhere. I like the idea a lot if there's a way to make that work, and I was thinking of sometimes you see those speed bumps that are made out of composite plastic material, and they're very low. If you put those in a parallel fashion to the lane, they're used as speed bumps frequently. It's a very cheap speed bump. Those could be installed parallel, and those could be that barrier that you were talking about.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's impossible. I'd love to see what staff thinks about it, and how can we do that and be safe. But I mean, if we could swap the two, it would be an ideal thing. Other than the unforeseen implications of it, it would be ideal.
Yeah. You probably have to lose a couple parking spots in certain areas just so that by driveways.
Correct.
Right? I mean, because that's what you're talking about. So,
Well, the public hearing's closed. You can't, it's the council.
no, I mean, there would be, so what you're saying is we'd have to have some public discussion before we did any removal.
If we were to remove any parking.
Right.
But we can, like I said, still facilitate parking on Melrose and improve the bike lanes. We can come back to the council with some design options before we repave it this summer.
Okay. So if we were to approve the bicycle master plan this evening, we're not removing parking?
Exhibit 4 in your packet is a resolution that provides the council the authority to
it's 5.
move parking throughout the city. Is it? It's 4, I believe.
It's 5.
No, it's Exhibit 4, but it is the
Resolution 5.
Number 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so I'm sorry.
No, you got it. Yeah.
If you do not adopt that resolution, that will allow us to come back to council wherever we need to remove parking in the future.
Okay. So, of course, there's other implications, I guess, right, if we don't approve this master plan. So I know one of the implications is we got to pay 40 grand or something like that for the rest of this.
Sandag awarded us a grant of about $135,000, roughly. 150, I'm sorry, to prepare the plan and get it adopted. If we don't adopt it, we will likely have to refund that money to Sandag.
Okay. So by removing resolution number 5, is that a problem?
Now, in other words, nothing in the plan commits us to removing parking.
Okay.
There are some recommendations in the plan, just like in all of our plans, that we may or may not do. If we have to come back to council, we'll have a public hearing, notify all the fronting property owners, and have a full process before any of that's done.
Okay, then the second question is if we remove resolution 5, and will that still qualify us for some of the grant money that
That's not tied to the bike plan approval or the grant requirements whatsoever. So no, there's no jeopardy in removing that resolution from approval tonight.
Okay, well then I can support the plan with resolution 5 being removed then.
Just for clarification from the ones that have spoke so far, when you're talking about removal of parking, you're talking about for all of the areas that are identified, not just North Melrose?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, my concern is not limited to North Melrose.
Right. Mine neither. So.
Nor is mine, which is why I brought that up and I wanted to remove that. But the other thing is when you're talking about...
Councilmember Campbell still has...
I'm done, so
I'm
Councilman
sorry.
Campbell can
Yep.
speak now. Yeah.
You have to give Councilmember Campbell a choice.
Thank you.
Sorry, go.
That's okay. First, I wanted to say thank you to staff and our consultants for what really was a true outreach to the community. Now, I've gone through this not only here in the city of Vista with this bicycle plan, but in other cities with various other plans. And, you know, at the very last minute, you find out about it. Maybe it came in the mail, maybe it got stuck with the junk mail, whatever happened. It happens no matter how much effort and money we as a city spend, but what's important is you're here tonight and you voiced your concerns. And I think that the number of public workshops that we did, the outreach to the community, the outreach to property owners, really shows that not only as a city, but we as a council want public input and feedback on these issues. So first, thanks to staff for that, and developing truly a comprehensive plan for the future of bicycling in the city. I think the plan goes a long way once we've adopted and implemented a lot of these recommendations, goes a long way to not only improving the safety of bicyclists in the city, but improving the public image of Vista. It really goes a long way to making sure that Vista is a city that has a transportation plan that's not only friendly to drivers of automobiles, but to bicyclists and pedestrians as well. I understand the concerns of certain areas that may have about the lack of parking on street if we were to move the parking tonight. I think that there's workarounds in those areas that I'd like staff to come back to us with those plans and see what the options are. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. You know, my concern, as Mr. Connolly stated, is if there's some sight lines that are obstructed with bicyclists coming out from behind cars and cars from the street turning into driveways, that's a major safety concern to me. But I think there's ways that we can reduce some of those parking spaces and still allow for on-street parking and create a safer environment for bicyclists. My biggest comment that I've received from people throughout the community for as long as I can remember is you can't find a very safe place to bike in Vista. Vista is not known for being a very bicycle-friendly community. As Councilmember Franklin stated, you can't ever be 100% safe. I think we know that. But nor can you be 100% safe driving an automobile down the street either. What we can do is create the safest environment possible for bicyclists, while in these studies you see that there's not a tremendous volume in some areas of bicyclists on the street. I think that's very indicative of the fact that those are not very safe areas to bike in currently. If we created a more family-friendly bike environment, we would see a significant uptick in bicyclists in those areas. One of the audience members stated that bicyclists were riding on the sidewalk. Well, I think one of the reasons in some areas we see bicyclists resorting to riding on the sidewalk, many of them knowing that it's not lawful to do, is that the bike lane next to the traffic is unsafe for them to utilize, especially for younger individuals or families that are going out biking. So I'm very supportive of the plan. I think the one hiccup that we have is the blanket authorization of removal of on-street parking. At least that's what it sounds like tonight. So what I would like to do, and of course Councilman Rigby has more comments to make, but I would like to make a motion to close the public hearing and adopt the resolutions 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7 item numbers, and have item number 5, the resolution, come back to us on in a different mechanism, case-by-case basis, or maybe in a section-by-section basis, not necessarily every small section, but as staff wants to bring it back in the future. So I'd like to make that motion that we adopt the bicycle master plan, and on a case-by-case basis, when staff develops a plan, bring back the removal of on-street parking issue.
Okay, Councilmember Rigby.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to reiterate my concern with switching the parking with a bicycle lane. And I don't think that you can say it would be unforeseen when we're sitting here tonight talking about the safety issue. It can be foreseen with bicyclists coming out from behind cars that you might not see them if you're trying to turn. So that's a concern for me, and I've been in areas where they have that, and it's talk about intense when you're trying to turn and you can't see back there, but you know you thought you saw somebody a block or so back. So I would be wary of doing that, and I'd have to see how we would structure that before it was done. And the other thing is, and I know we talked about this when you were kind enough to go through my 2,000 tabs and 25 pages of notes, with regard to, and Councilman Franklin alluded to it, with the barrier on the side, when we're already going to be resurfacing the streets and embedding those, I forget what you call those dots.
Rumble dots.
Rumble dots, thank you. You know, 2 or 3 in a line parallel with the road, so that drivers know that they're getting too close to a bike lane, and that bicyclists know they're getting too close to the motorist lane, or something like that. Anyway, so that when you come back to council in the future, would that be something that we could look at with the resurfacing, as far as the cost addition to the resurfacing improvements that we've perhaps already agreed to or would be agreeing to? Mr. City Manager, is that a question for you?
Yeah, we can definitely come back to the council with the striping plans for those segments before they're put in.
Okay. And yes.
I might add, Mr. Conley, maybe you could explain what our intention was if resolution number 5 was to be approved with some of the striping and the slurry seal / overlay project that we have going on right now.
That's the project that's going to be built this summer. So that was only if parking was going to be removed. In this case, it won't be removed. So we'll come back and share the design plans with the council and show them how we're going to maintain parking and still improve the bike lanes.
Okay, thank you.
If there is an opportunity, though, for parking to be removed, or if that's a desire of the council in the future, the timing of that is with the slurry seal project that we have this summer, so that we have the contractor out there doing it one time.
Right.
So I just want to make you aware of that.
What's the lifespan on that slurry seal again?
Anywhere, estimated 7 years is a slurry.
The code currently requires that if we remove parking, we go through a process of notifying residents, going to the traffic commission, and coming to the council. So we would follow that process. And with this respect, for the removal of any parking absent the adoption of Resolution 5 in your packet.
Okay.
With respect to the design plans, we'll come back on a separate item. With the overlay contract, we can show you where we would be restriping and share those plans with you before the overlay contract goes out.
Thank you. The last comment I had goes back to what I said earlier with the bicycle master plan overall, in that, especially with concern with Chapter 7 on program development and education, I can't, in good conscience, approve this without knowing that there's going to be something, an element coming forward to increase the education across the board, not just for one demographic. I think that's imperative, and especially when this report even identifies 70% of the accidents are the fault of the bicyclists. So I'm not sure where we go with that. I would like to know, is it possible for staff to come back with perhaps some options, with some investigation into what we might be able to do as far as the education part of this whole thing, because that's actually very important to me.
So in the program recommendations, as far as the education and safety, there are a few things mentioned: a bicycle safety rodeo, which
Right.
is something where, you know, I think go to
Right.
the schools and do that whole thing, and safe bicycling through physical education classes. So there are aspects in that. One of the difficulties is that we don't run the schools, so we
Right.
can't put these types of requirements into educational programs.
Right, and that's
All we
my
can do
point.
is- all we can do is encourage.
We don't run the schools, yet we're going to be charged with running the bicycle network and be responsible for the safety of our bicyclists, our motorists, our skateboarders who actually use the bicycle lanes, and that's of concern to me, as well as the bicyclists. And I think putting in the bicycle master plan that you're going to be asking the school district to be holding these programs, when I'm not seeing anybody from the school district here saying, yeah, we're going to take that on for you, that's a concern for me. But also, like I said before, I think it needs to be a mandatory program, and the only way to make it a mandatory program, or to have any of these programs, I mean, this is kind of, to me, pie in the sky when we're not even with the school district and can't mandate for them to do any of this. I would like to see, since we're the ones charged with this, what are we going to do that we can control, and how are we going to be able to broaden the scope of the education across the board for all demographics? That's my concern. And I'd hate to put this out there in the bicycle master plan and leave it at Chapter 7 the way it's written, that the school district, you know, they're going to try to get the PE teachers to teach bike road safety and stretching exercises, which we don't have any control over the school district. So that's a very serious concern for me, and until I see that we have a comprehensive education program plan in here, to me the bicycle master plan is incomplete.
Deputy Mayor Aguilera.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I definitely understand my fellow council members' concerns, but at the same time, we don't authorize people to drive their cars, and you know, I just think us going ahead and as a city regulating who can ride bikes and not, it's going to be very difficult and expensive, I think, for us to implement and enforce. I mean, I definitely understand what you're saying. It would be nice to be able to provide that, but I just don't see how the city would be able to regulate that without costing the citizens money. I'm in favor of the plan as it is, with the exception of Resolution 5. So I will second the motion that's on the floor.
Councilmember Campbell.
The question is going to ask of Mr. Conley. He already answered it, but I do want to second Councilman Aguilera's comment that I don't think there's a realistic way that we could mandate bicyclist education for bicyclists using our system. I don't think that's even within our purview to create a bicyclist license or anything along that regard. Maybe I'm wrong. If I am, the city attorney could correct me, but that seems like it would be very costly and out of our realm of not only enforcement, but our legal ability to do so.
Okay, so I haven't said anything. I do support biking, actually, but I don't bike in Vista because I don't feel safe here to bike in Vista. So I actually am a realtor, and I've shown condos in your area, in your complex, and there is a parking problem over there. I get it, and I kind of put it back on, and I don't think I was on the council at that time. I put it back on whoever designed the complex that should have designed more parking in there. I always think some of the complexes we're designing don't have enough parking in the very beginning when they design them. So the one thing I would say about the lanes, I've seen them in other cities. They're painted a different color. They're just striped differently. And I know that when you have the slurry seal for the streets and things, that maybe causes a problem. But I think that would cause a better awareness if we could do some kind of different color, some kind of a bright color of paint on the bicycle lanes. And then the only other thing I was going to ask about on Melrose was, could we possibly narrow the traffic lane? I mean, we're doing that in some areas, narrowing the traffic lanes. Can we narrow the traffic lanes to help the bike lane a little bit? Is that a possibility on Melrose?
That's possible. We'll, like I said, when we come back with the design, we'll talk about what the options are, but that's a possibility.
Okay, and then the only other thing, I mean, I agree with a lot of everything that's said, so I won't repeat a lot of it, but I would say the only other thing is I disagree with you is when I was growing up, I rode my bike everywhere. I lived in Michigan, all over town, but we rode on the sidewalks everywhere. I was not allowed to ride in the street, and there aren't enough pedestrians on the sidewalks either. There's so many sidewalks all over town that I never see people on, so I don't know I don't know why it's against the law to ride a bike on the sidewalk. I mean, when there's nobody there, it seems to me, I would agree with this thing where they're allowing, this number 3 where it says, we're changing the amendment to allow bikes on the sidewalks. I don't know why it's just in that one little area. I don't know why if there's nobody on a sidewalk, somebody can't ride a bike on there. So that would be my other thing to add to you guys. So everybody's smiling at me up here. They apparently don't agree with me. So anyway, we have a first and a second. Oh, do we have more people want to speak again? Are these on?
I just clicked my button. I don't know if the Deputy Mayor or Councilman Campbell did. I just wanted to reiterate 7.1.1 says encourage the development of bicycle education as part of the driver's education programs. Again, I don't know how we would do that when we're not in control of driver's ed programs. But if we can put that in there when we don't control it, can we put in there to encourage bicyclist education? I really need to see that in there somewhere because I think it's important. And I think saying we can't do it, yet it's here, it's something that we can't do, is kind of disingenuous. But I'll get off it now.
So we have a first and a second. So if everyone is through talking, can we vote? Motion passes with one abstention, one no vote, yeah. So it'll come back to us eventually for all of you. That will come back to us when your area is, when the council or when the staff decides what to do with your area, that'll all come back to us. And hopefully we'll have an answer for you by then, a good answer. Oh, I have one more. So I have one speaker here. One public speaker. You guys ready for public speaker? Renee Glassbaugh. You guys are meeting still. Hello out there. Hello out there. Our meeting's still going on. So could you guys kind of be quiet and maybe talk out in the lobby?
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members and staff and audience. This is about safety and remembering. This is about safety and remembering the beautiful hearts that were taken away to enjoy the family and friends by insane drunk drivers, and to say that insane drunk drivers must stop. Also insane, the speed drivers, they must learn to obey the law. In the city of Vista, from November 2014 to January 27, 2015, there were 10 DUIs. There were 4 crashes, 3 very painful injuries. On Highway 78, there were 5 DUIs, November 14th to January 27th, 2015. The alcohol beverage control of 2014 and 15 is still investigating the process of whether to recommend 902 South Santa Fe Avenue their liquor license, which would be a total disaster for the good citizens of Vista, or to keep them dry as they are now, which would be the right thing to do. They are investigating the unacceptable, horrific alcohol crimes that continue to escalate, along with the horrific alcohol-fueled spousal abuses. Number one needs to be the health, safety, and welfare for all citizens of Vista, above all else. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. Okay, that brings us to our end of our meeting and our public comments. Make sure that's where I am here. Remarks, and so I will give my comments, and then I'll ask each council member to give theirs. And so yesterday, I had the honor of presenting my 5th State of the City address at the Chamber's State of the Community luncheon. If you aren't able to attend but are interested in what was shared, we have posted my remarks and presentation online at thecityofvista.com. As part of our Cal Recycle grant to address household hazardous waste, the city is sponsoring a used oil and filter recycling event this Saturday, January 31st. You can drop off used oil and exchange your used filter for a new one. The event runs from 10 to 2 at the AutoZone on 950 South Santa Fe. The Vista Library now has virtual counseling, which allows Vista Library patrons free virtual access to real-time counseling from local nonprofit agencies. For more information on the library's website, you can go to www.sdcl.org. So those are my comments for tonight, or my announcements, and I will go down and start with Councilmember Rigby.
I thought you were going to start at that end. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I want to say thank you again to everyone who was here tonight, and those of you who are still here tonight, that you made it to the bitter end. As always, I want to say thank you to staff. You do a great job for us, and my personal thanks to you for your help in tonight's meeting and the agenda, especially the bicycle master plan. I did literally have pages and pages of questions and comments, and I did a lot of research on my own, and especially Mr. Conley and Assistant City Manager Ali Zimmerman went through a lot with me with that, and I appreciate it very, very much. I do want to report that I went to Sacramento, and I was for the League of Cities for the policy meeting for revenue and taxation. It was a very lively meeting, as it always is when we talk about money. And we're still trying to work out CITUS for sales tax with the online sales. That hasn't been worked out yet, so who knows when it might work out in our favor, that we might get some more sales tax from items that are sold online. But the big thing with sales tax, and this might or might not have anything to do with the city as much as it does with individuals, is there is a proposal to increase the items that are subject to sales tax. Instead of just products, it's going to be services. So that's going to be across the board. They want to broaden the base of where sales tax revenue comes from. That's still in the drawing stages. They're still trying to work on language. They got a lot of blowback at this meeting from all of the electeds that were in the room. So that's just something for us to keep an eye on, and I can see both sides of that as far as what's good for the city, but what's best for the people. And they're talking about the balancing the balance sheet on that. So that's just something that we're going to keep an eye on, those two items that might affect the city sometime down the road. So that was my big thing. I went to Sacramento.
Councilmember Franklin? Councilmember Campbell? Deputy Mayor Aguilera?
Just a reminder, I'm board member for NCTD next month, February. there will be no more alcohol consumption on the coaster. So keep that in mind in making your plans for Padre games or what have you. So thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, our city manager, Patrick Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to update everybody that the City Council will have a workshop next week, February 3rd. There'll be two items discussed. One is inclusionary housing policies, and the other is multifamily development. It'll take place in the council chambers here at 2 p.m. So it's been a while since we've had a formal workshop, but we will have one in February. We'll also have one in March. Another item is the Vista Sheriff's Department is seeking senior volunteer patrol assistance. And so if you're a senior and you'd like to volunteer with the Sheriff's Department, they do things like check on seniors, they check on people that are on vacation, they check on their homes, I should say. They do parking restrictions, and they also assist deputies with traffic incidents and things in the field. So if you're interested, please call the Sheriff's Department at 940-4434, and that's area code 760. And as part of the requirements for the federal CDBG Community Development Block Grant Funding, the city is seeking people to take the Fair Housing Survey. And if you've been exposed to any sort of fair housing experiences with the city, we want you to go to our website, which is cityofvista.com, and please take the survey to provide feedback to us. So thank you.
City Attorney Darrell Piper.
Nothing this evening. Thank you, Mayor.
City Clerk Marcy Killian.
We are recruiting for commissioners, and the deadline is March 23rd. So fill out an application.
Come on in.
Thank you.
Assistant City Clerk Amanda? No? Okay. Okay, with that, we are adjourned.